What are you? What are you? It says press the T button. I don't know what the T button is. Hooray. Whoa. Hi everybody, this is Princess Tegan, VR Gamer Girl. You're watching Viewer Takeover. Cue the music, Brian.
This is Viewer Takeover. We film every Monday night. We bring it to YouTube every Tuesday. That's a total lie. That doesn't happen. It never happens. Last week didn't happen. The week before that didn't happen. It's probably going to be Wednesday. God, I hope Poker Stars is out. My name's Brian Paul from this channel right here. And the boys to my right. Wait a minute. This is so not just boys. Tiffany Tolman. Secret guest star? I was going to say special guest star. But no, you're now our secret guest star from Skydance Interactive.
Secret.
Yeah.
Love it. Love being here. Thank you so much for letting me come on and infiltrate.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Absolutely. And of course, we've got Dave from Dave Station VR.
Hello, Brian.
I know you love that, Dave.
Great day. I do love it. I'm going to stop being mad about it. I'm just going to turn these into positive emotions and ask how your day was, everyone. Hope you're having a great day.
And that guy on the right-hand side of the screen is AJ from the Underground, PSVR Underground.
Hello, friends.
Okay. Wow.
It's so hard to follow you up, Brian, when you intro us like that. I'm just like, I don't know what. It's like
here's the energy, and you guys just go.
Who's this guy?
And every week on Viewer Takeover, we like to thank a whole lot of people.
I am still reeling from the intro.
And the first person we want to thank is Princess Tegan, the VR Gamer Girl, for that awesome, fantastic, amazing, adorable introduction.
Princess Tegan is amazing. Hell yeah, Todd.
To a good start. Hopefully, he doesn't actually let her watch the show. I hope. I swear to God.
She edited that. She filmed it.
Tegan, you are the best. The best.
Todd had nothing to do with it.
And now turn it off because it's going to be all vulgarities from here on out. So, but you're the best.
I agree. 100% the best. If you want to introduce next week's show, make sure you, like Princess Tegan, send your short, sweet, seductive... Ooh, that doesn't sound right anymore. Introduction to withoutparole@gmail.com. Just go with the flow. But of course, Princess Tegan isn't the only person we want to thank. We also want to thank these people. These people down here. These people who went to patreon.com/withoutparolegames. And they're the ones who give us $1 or more every single month. Remember, we don't ask any money from you. We're just happy that you're here. The loyalists of the loyalists. Game Cats out there hanging out, being cool, being awesome. We love you so much. No money required. But if you like what you see and you want to keep the lights on, head on over to patreon.com/withoutparolegames. Just like our Patreon leaders, MTM the Game Cat, T. Flaros, and Joshua McCrory. Hey Jay.
AJ.
This is one of those weeks where everything is just fucking not going.
It's me. I bring that.
She's throwing us off. She's totally throwing our vibe off.
I'm very happy.
Throw a wrench in.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
You can edit her out there, right? It'll be.
It'll just be a black box. Just put Tegan there. I mean, she'll be good.
AJ, who else do we want to thank this week?
We would like to thank those who support us in another way by changing their name on YouTube to something Game Cat, something Game Cat related, or something Game Cat adjacent, as you and something Game Cat adjacent would like to say. And this week, we have 4 new Game Cats to welcome to the Game Cat Dojo. But as always now, with our new special guest, Tiffany, you're going to get to read the names. You have the honor, the privilege.
And the obligation, and you have to do it, and you're forced to do it.
And you have to read all these names without laughing.
Did you get Jay and your mods to do this? Am I being set up? Am I being punked right now? All right. First, we have tax refund. The hour of his judgment has come. In cat.
All right, somebody knows the reference, right? Somebody's got another reference.
I don't, but I know it's a reference, so I'm halfway there. I know it's something.
Okay.
So who does know what it is?
I'm going to Google it later, so we'll figure that out later.
You know, Google it right now. By the end of this section, I'll know.
Okay. Who else we got, Tiff?
That would be fantastic. Live on the scene. Next, we have Jazzy J, the Tarot Mage, Game Cat.
It's from the Bible, guys.
I
It's
have the
from the
meow.
Bible.
Oh, nice.
It's a Bible verse, Revelation
Oh, you think
14:7,
would have known that?
and he said in a loud voice, "Fear God and give Him glory, because the hour of His judgment has come."
I think it's pronounced Yazzie.
I hope he's bringing a PSVR 2 with him.
I think it's pronounced DJ
Yazzie
Jazzy
Yay.
Jeff and
You
the
did
Fresh
set me
Prince.
up.
No, it's not.
Yeah, definitely.
Who else we got?
All right, next we have Arnie, the game cat.
What's up, Arnie?
I'm gonna add a
down.
meow every time now.
Yeah. And just one more. Who else? I
We
didn't finish the
have
sentence,
I am
I'm sorry.
Batman. I am game cat.
I'm
I love.
That one a lot.
I'm
I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.
Does this have aim support?
All right. I should have done it the way AJ would have said that.
Guys,
That's a quote that I also misremembered. Whenever I'm playing Population 1, I like to fly through the windows with my arms outstretched, and I was saying, I'm the Bat, which is apparently something that he never said in the movies. I just thought it would sound cool.
I don't. Yeah. 'Cause he wasn't a bat.
He's the Bat. He's the Batman. He leaves out the man part. I don't know. They get the picture.
if you change your name to GameCat because you love us almost as much as we love you, make sure you put hashtag GameCat in the comments below, and we'll give you a shout out on next week's show. And who knows who the developer's going to be then, man? It's like, you better just change it just in case your favorite developer happens to be on next week's show. There's a possibility, right?
Hey, I'm not their favorite.
Well, I mean, they lost their chance, man. If they didn't do it now, then they lost their chance.
We're up for other
Tiff,
favorite.
you have to come back next week and read everyone's everyone's GameCat name change.
We'll have a segment where we just bring her back to read the names, and then she's out.
You've
I'm good.
really peaked in life, Tiff. When that's your new job.
Job offers are rolling in right now.
Okay. Dave, what do we really do here on the show, though? Oh, no, you know what? This is when I usually ask Dave what we do here on the show, but that's not what we want to do. Tiffany's here. Man, we want to celebrate that. We want to be super duper happy because Tiffany and her team over at Skydance Interactive made one of our favorite games on PlayStation VR, second only Resident Evil 7.
The best game on PSVR.
Knew that was coming.
All right, we're doing the 25 right now.
Top 25.
Oh, God.
Okay, catch and release, number 25. Okay.
You said you signed up for 3 hours. That's going to be at least 5 hours.
Good point. Good point.
Saints and Sinners, of course, is a game we all absolutely love. Tiff, what's going on over at Skydance, man? Is everyone just
Oh my gosh.
loving the
been-
positive press, right?
Yeah, it's been amazing. I mean, because before we had The Walking Dead, we didn't really have a marketing staff in-house, and now we have one, and they're just killing it. And, you know, thanks to the organic marketing where they've just kind of fed the flames of you guys and content creators, it's been amazing. So yeah, they're an incredible genius team over there at Skydance Interactive. I'm just glad to be a part of it.
Oh, it helps they're selling a decent product. And when I say decent,
true,
I mean
too.
it's pretty decent.
What are you trying to say about Archangel? Finally selling something good over
You know-
there.
I loved Archangel.
All right,
I was
moving right
shouting
along.
Archangel.
Can I ask what it was like to go from something like Archangel, where it was just like your own IP, to something that, you know, was established?
You know, there was a lot of excitement about being able to delve into a backstory that had already been created. You know, the challenges of something with an original IP is that it's an untested, unproven, you know, thing. We don't know if the fans will like it. You need to sell them on this idea. So Walking Dead, it just is rife with so many opportunities. You know, there's so many places we can go with it. And thanks to Skybound with partnering, it allowed us to kind of create a freedom here and there. And it was just amazing. So I wouldn't say it's better. It's just different, and it's a great opportunity. So, I mean, yeah, keep the cool IPs coming. We love it.
Back in the day, IPs, licensed IPs were kind of like not very great. And like, I've always noticed a strange relationship with them and VR is like, they actually tend to be very good. I don't know if it helps the funding, the publicity, the teams that pick it up. Maybe they have more demand for a more experienced team, like they want it in better hands. But it's been an interesting trend that is something I'm accustomed to now. But at first, it was definitely weird to see that.
There
Well,
are
that's nice
still
of you to
plenty
say.
of exceptions to that rule, though, like Justice League VR. I don't know if you remember Justice League VR. That thing, big flaming shovelware. And we've had a lot of tie-ins that are still kind of like, not so great. But you guys are kind of leading the path forward and showing people how it can be done. I think.
Well,
So,
when you look at something like, I remember, because I was barely born in the 80s, I remember back in the 80s when they had superhero movies, and they were just, I mean, I love them, they're great, but you look at them now and you're just kind of cringy because, again, you didn't have a very big group of people who watched them, so the budget wasn't big. You just had to put something out there that appealed to that niche fan base. I feel the same way about IPs. You know, for a while there, it was like, oh, we've really got to put something out there that'll be for just that niche group, and we don't have a lot of money, so unfortunately, we have grand aspirations. We just ran out of time, we ran out of budget, whatever it is. So you kind of got a mixed bag, and I think more and more, like with Marvel, you know, and Christopher Nolan with, you know, his movie sets, really started to take it seriously. It's like, look, this is not just a niche market. There are a lot of people who really like specific IPs in video games, and video games took off as well as that level of detail in IPs. You still get your dregs, but yeah, I agree with you. I think it's getting better and better.
It was also the whole thing that like the internet didn't exist back when we were young. And so you didn't have this, oh, I wonder if this game's any good before you purchase it moment. You just like, oh my goodness, a Spider-Man game, it's got to be good. And then you buy it and you go bring it home. Like back in the day, LJN and Acclaim just put out like, I mean, just piles and piles and piles of garbage, essentially, and you can't get away with that anymore. You'll tarnish the reputation of your studio, and people find out immediately the day that it comes out or sooner, whether it's crap or not. So like, I feel like if you're spending money for licenses, then you better make the best use of it these days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
agreed.
and the other part of it too is like, even if you don't hear anything about a game before it comes out, that's now an indication that they're hiding something. And so, you know, if you don't have a review a week ahead of time to gauge how you're going to feel about it, you know something's going to be wrong with the game when it drops, which is a
Most of the
totally
time, not every time,
weird
but most of the
dynamic
time.
that we,
Right.
I mean, a lot of the time, you know, those sorts of embargoes are because they don't really want.
Although-
Cyberpunk just happened. And
Although
all
Saints
that.
and Sinners was an exception to that
I knew
rule.
that was coming up. I knew it. As soon as they were talking about
Hey,
embargoes.
Saints and Sinners was out on PC, and everybody knew it was awesome.
Yep.
It had tons of PSVR
Yeah,
trailers.
but
and
we
stuff, so.
AJ, you and I behind the scenes had a phone call, a conversation where I said, they're hiding something, man. They're not. We're not getting the game ahead of time. They're letting us know when it's coming out, but that's all we know. I'm like, I think the port might suck.
I don't know what you're talking about, Brian.
Yeah. I'm so happy we
He
were wrong.
disavows all knowledge in
Figment.
this conversation.
Figment of your imagination, Brian. Sorry.
Hey, I'm just
Yeah.
happy we were wrong, man. As long as we get good games, I don't mind being wrong 24/7.
Oh, thanks, man.
All right, guys, do you want to move on to see what the viewers wrote in and asked us this week?
Yes.
Sure.
Who is our first victim?
I think our first victim is Tiffany. I think Tiffany needs to read out the first question that we received this week.
Okay, so the first one comes to us from Dead Ringer. Love that.
Right.
Someone mentioned on the last game cast that they thought we would see an emulator or software on PS5 that would allow PS4 flat games to be played in VR. I really hope something like that is possible. Yeah, me too, actually. They have Vorpex for PC, so we know it would work, but would Sony help with something like this? And is it possible on the PS architecture?
Finally, BioShock in VR, guys. Finally. I don't care how we
Right?
get it. Any way possible.
That would be amazing. Can you imagine injecting yourself and
No, I
believe
can't
it.
imagine that at all, Tiff. Not even remotely. I also
Yeah,
can't imagine
me
you blowing
neither.
a line of ketamine or
yeah,
carry on.
innocent we are.
Hopefully Tegan is tuned out at this point.
I think she has now.
You know, the emulation and stuff sounds cool, but there's the second part of this kind of irks me a little bit. They say they have Vorpix for PC, so we know it could work, and stuff like that. Here's the problem. I don't know a ton about Vorpix, but I remember somebody telling me that they were like, oh, I played Resident Evil 7 and it looked terrible and it controlled terrible. And I was like, what? Like, I was like, because they had the wrong impression of it. So to me, it depends on the quality of the emulation software, because from what I've understood with the Resident Evil 7 port, it was like a flat image that was like supposed to give off kind of like a 3D look. Like it wasn't real VR where it like really feels like it's in a 3D space. And also it had the PlayStation controls, not the where you look around to aim and stuff, that actually the PS4. And I told the dude, I was like, play the PS4 version. I'm like, what are you doing? That's not Resident Evil 7 if you're playing it on this version of it.
Yeah, it probably is frustrating to hear people comment on games that they haven't actually really analyzed. But, you know, the thing about Sony and especially PlayStation is that they're all about backwards compatibility. It would not be, I don't think, outside the realm of, you know, world of reason for them to come up with some way to make sure that all of these VR games could be played on some sort of emulator. I don't think it's going to be soon. I think they have other issues right now hardware-wise, but that would be terrific. Get more people in.
Well, it's worth noting, too, that Vorpex isn't just like a one-size-fits-all, you plug a flat game in, you get a fully featured VR game out of it. Like AJ was saying, like, people for years have been desperate to play Alien Isolation in VR, right? And so they take to using Vorpex to do that. But what I've heard is, you know, some of the ways that it works is, like, it doesn't have 6 degrees of freedom, it doesn't have motion-tracked controllers. There are these things that feel like halfway there. Because what else are you going to do? You're hacking away at stuff. It's mods, essentially.
Right.
Like, it's not supposed to run this way. And so I think for that reason, because the product is so much based on that sort of hacking into stuff mentality and, you know, making it optimized to run even when it's not really coded that way, I don't think Sony would do this. This is one of those projects that requires so much individual effort from people in the community who want to make sure these games run in VR that they will go into the code and fool with it to make sure it does. And I don't see Sony like putting that much effort into it. And it's also one of these things, you know, the PC environment is always a lot more mod oriented and customizing stuff and getting in and changing. Console makers have never really liked that idea or wanted to foster that. I can't see a one size fits all solution, but I could see specific titles getting that sort of treatment.
Yeah, I can kind of agree with
on.
that, Dave.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's a good point. My thinking was purely about if Sony could come up with, like, if the fan base, or I should say the market, was big enough to want the VR, that's what we're talking about. And I think for sure it would have, therefore, a business reason to want to do that.
Well, so
The
Brian,
angry
what's your take
internet
on
in
this?
the-
What do you think about this one? I haven't heard from you yet.
I don't know, man. You know, flipping the switch, making non-VR games into VR games, obviously isn't that easy. Otherwise, I think everyone would have done it already. You know, there's obviously ways to do it on PC, and it sounds like the results haven't been awesome. So, you know, Dreams has showed us that if a game isn't built for VR, then you can run into issues. And Sony is so strict about their certification process that the last thing that they'd want is for you to be playing VR games that weren't meant for VR, and then running into frame rate issues, or, you know, your head's suddenly inside of a wall, that kind of thing. It's so I don't see it happening. And at the same time, like I want developers to love their IP enough to take the time and give it the attention it deserves and handcraft us, you know, whether it be one of their older IPs or an older game in their stable or a brand new game. I want them to take the time and give that game the love it requires to bring it into VR gracefully, instead of being like, hey, here's a fucking hack job so you can finally play BioShock in VR, Brian. And I'm like, ooh, this is not what I was asking for. You know, yeah. I want it to be, when I finally get to play BioShock in VR, I want it to be everything I've ever wanted. And I don't think this is the way to make that happen. Next question comes to us from
Mick Coles, the shapes throwing cat. Throw your shapes. Throw your shapes.
Apparently it means just
I'm
dancing.
voguing.
I had no
I'm not
idea.
so sure. I'm like voguing. I don't think it's that. Sorry. Has Sony missed a massive revenue stream by allowing scalpers to stockpile unregistered PS5s, thus stopping extra sales of software, subscriptions, accessories, etc., from the average Joe, which in turn would help fund needed R&D in the next PSVR 2 model? Should Sony have done more to block scalpers if they knew how much they were truly missing out on the long term? Well, I have thoughts on this one.
This is
please,
a big issue.
tell us your thoughts on this.
You want to go first?
Well, here's the thing. First of all, I mean, again, another great question, which it's frustrating because, you know, this is not just the PlayStation, although that is, I think, the brunt of it right now. But I mean, this is just throughout all of the hardware. Like you look at the PC, GPUs, CPUs, those things are insanely being scalped overpriced.
Well, and
I
these
think
guys
they're
do
coming
like
down now.
sneakers and limited edition clothing items and stuff too. They'll scalp anything. They have like a whole
Yeah.
network of scalping. It's
So
like their
it's
full-time job.
it's a systemic problem that only, I mean, yeah, sure, we could put it all on Sony, but part of me wants to also put it on the consumer, the people who are willing to pay the scalpers because they want it now, and they refuse to say, you know what, this is unacceptable behavior, and we're going to wait until we can actually get it down to a reasonable price. And do I really need to have the latest and greatest right now? Now, in order to play a game, you probably do, but I mean, if we reduce the amount of demand, then they're not going to get away with it as much.
Right.
But that's a weird spot for Sony to be in, though, because like they want people to have their console. They want to move these things. They don't want some dude sitting with 30 of them in his garage trying to sell them for $1,000.
Yeah, I mean, Sony's missing massive revenue streams left and right. Like, I'm still upset. I mean, I got a PlayStation 5, and I still can't spend money on that thing the way that I want to. It's ridiculous that they have currently. They've still not allowed me to access the media side of the PlayStation Store from my PlayStation 5. I can't rent movies. I can't buy movies, and that was where I did this before. So I mean, like, they're missing out on revenue streams from people who even have the PlayStation 5. But my question for Mick Coles, and maybe you guys know more about this than I do, but I don't see scalpers sitting on thousands and thousands and thousands of PlayStations. I see them buying up all the stock that's allotted and then selling them themselves, and that's how they keep the price up, because you have to go through them rather than Sony or Amazon or Walmart or somebody like that. But it's dangerous to sit on thousands of PlayStations, because suddenly they could all be going for the same price or lower, depending on shipping and taxes and all that stuff. So I mean, are they really stockpiling these things? Because any moment they could all be in stock, and suddenly you're out of money, and you're sitting on a whole stockpile of PlayStation 5s that you're not gonna profit on. And it's just gonna take a lot of time and effort to make your money back. So are they stockpiling? Is that a thing?
Are they actually moving? Is what you mean?
Kind of. Well, so either way, I think they will have made their money. I don't think they'll come out of this empty-handed. Even if they do have to sell them at retail price at some point, they've already made double on all the ones they've sold, or $300 extra or whatever they're charging. I mean, I don't see an end game where this doesn't end up positively for the scalpers and negatively for everybody else.
The reports have said about 10 to 15% are what have been the scalpers have been able to acquire and stuff. And I agree with all of your points there. The one thing I want to add to the specific question from Mick Coles, though, is he says he was mentioning that in turn it helps the funding needed for R&D in the next PSVR 2 model. I don't think these have any relation. I don't think, no matter what happens, Sony's going to do what Sony's going to do with their hardware in the future. Something like this, it may affect in some way, but it like whatever they have planned, they're going to get those plans accomplished. And something like scalpers selling PS5s is not going to affect that.
I was thinking that with regards to Sony, they do have obviously power. Right now, I feel like the pandemic has really messed with distribution of the supply on, again, CPUs, GPUs, just the manufacturing of them. I kind of get the sense that this isn't right now in their what they're worried about currently. I feel like right now they're just trying to jam as many as they can in order to crank out as many as possible, because we all know that there's no way they meant for this to be such a small supply. They wanted this to be very penetrating, very much, going into the market so everybody could get it when they needed it, not have it drag out this long. So while it's probably not a solvable problem now, because I think scalpers are just taking advantage of the situation. It's the perfect time to do something like this, because we're all working from home mostly, and going on Zoom and having the latest hardware has become such a necessity across the globe.
one thing you mentioned there, Tiffany, has got me thinking. I mean, even though they're hard to find, and this is the one item everybody wants but can't get their hands on, they still sold record numbers of these things. Like for a console launch, they managed to push out a ton of them, and there's still not enough, which I think is a good sign overall. I mean, scalpers will persist; they'll continue to be there. But as a market, like to know that video gaming is at this point where a new console is that relevant to people and they really want to get their hands on it, because I think 10 15 years ago, if you were excited about a game console, you fucking nerd, right? Like, what's your problem? And now it's a thing where everybody wants a PS5.
Yeah, it's connected to so many apps now.
Yeah, and I think that just for Sony, that's a good sign, that they can sell record numbers for a launch and still not have enough for everybody.
Yeah. I think as far as Sony's concerned, it's just a matter of time before it goes from the scalper's hands into the consumer's hands, and that's all they care about. They just want to be able to say, we sold out of every single PlayStation 5 that we could possibly make. That's what their messaging is all about constantly. They're going to say, we're really sorry about the scalpers, probably publicly, but they're not going to do anything about it, and they probably don't care all that much, to be honest. I think a lot of the revenue stream that they have is already coming from the over 120 million PlayStation 4 owners who will eventually become PlayStation 5 owners. They're already paying for PlayStation Plus. They're still buying games on PS4 while they're waiting for their PlayStation 5. The money's still coming in from those consumers. I think there's a small group of people who are moving from Xbox or PCs over to PlayStation 5 this gen, but it's not a huge percentage. I don't think that
they're already in the ecosystem. Even if you have a PS5, how many games can you buy on it? You can buy Demon's Souls, you can buy Miles Morales, you can buy a handful of games, and then you're done. And Sony's got all the money they could possibly get from you at that point, because there's no more games that are PS5 exclusive.
You guys probably answered this on a prior thing, and now I'm just asking a question, because you know what? I'm here and I can.
We answer the same questions weekly, really.
Every week, yeah.
So what do you guys think about if there's a shift to charging more for games, like $70 for a game, as long as it's like a BioShock?
I mean, I think regardless of what we think about it, it's what's going to happen. That's kind of what the market has decided on at this point. A next-gen game is $70, unless it's an indie title that is smaller in scope. And I think for VR, we won't see that shift as immediately as other people do, because the market's not ready to pay $70 for a VR game. I don't think any VR game really at this point. They're typically priced a little lower on the scale. So I think we'll continue to see like 20, 30, 40 maximum, unless you're like a really, really polished game.
Well, I think the problem with
VR
that analogy is that we haven't seen any real AAA VR games.
And there aren't PS5 VR games either. There aren't technically any next-gen
right.
games to charge more for.
That's a good point.
I'm going to be more than happy to pay $70 for AAA VR games, that are, the scope of Grand Theft Auto 5s and Red Dead Redemption 2s, that kind of stuff. We get that on a regular basis in VR. Fucking sign me up. I'm totally happy paying $70 because we've been asking for those kind of games, these big, full-fledged things that are equivalent to flat screen games. We've been asking for that for 4.5 years now, and the ones that we've gotten have been amazing. And I would have gladly paid $70 for those, especially if they include the VR version. I've kind of always been saying that I don't mind the little VR tax. If you want to charge the normal flat screen gamer $60 and then charge me an extra $10 to get that VR mode in, then here we are. We're at the magical price point of $70. So I also don't believe that the market is ready for a $70 game. I think that the sales of Demon's Souls have proven that already. It's coupled with the fact that no one can get a PlayStation 5. But like, if these games don't sell at that price point, then I very, very easily could see Sony reversing that decision, going, you know what, we're sorry, $60 it is this gen.
I don't know if they're going to do that.
But you do agree, though, that software generally helps drive hardware. So, like, you could have the most amazing hardware, and then if it has bupkis for the software, then man. But if you have something that is on the PSVR, even though it's a dated system, it's still an amazing system with, even though the Move controllers and people have their problems with it, whatever. We've proven that.
I didn't know that. Do people complain about the Move controls?
Right. I had more salt into that wound here. Just let me really rub it in there. But anyway, so because of that, it's still possible to come up with really amazing games. Do you think that it's possible to create a game that's worth $70 on the current PSVR as it stands?
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
If they had sold Hitman as a trilogy, I would have paid $90 for it. But
Yeah.
I don't think the average consumer, not knowing that it's so good as a package, would want to pay that much for it.
Right. Right.
But a single game, I mean, easily Resident Evil Village, if that hits with PSVR support and it's $70, which I don't think Capcom is going the $70 route, are they? I didn't check the pre-order
It
prices.
seems mostly first party stuff, but I could be wrong.
If they happen,
I think
but
Ubisoft
using that
might
as an
went up
example,
too, but
using that as an example is hypothetically, even if they're not charging $70 for it, Resident Evil 7 is one of my favorite games of all time, and absolutely one of my top 2 favorite PlayStation VR games of all time. And man, if it's $70 and it has the replayability of that Resident Evil 7 had, and I'm gonna love it as much, and it's gonna scare the crap out of me as much, it's gonna be as immersive as much, man. Like, I mean, honestly, there's not really a price I wouldn't pay. So $70 is a deal for that. Coming from a guy who would easily spend $100 on every Resident Evil VR title that comes his way.
I've
I would
thing
pay
is-
70 as well, just so you know.
the
I've just-
unfortunate side effect of that, though, is that there will be more people who don't ever realize how much they would like that game because it's more expensive, and they just don't
right.
feel comfortable paying that price for it. So, like, if you had at launch, if Resident Evil 7 was, say, $80 or something crazy like that, way fewer people would have bought in originally to see if they liked it or not, and go around and in the end say, oh, this is my favorite VR game. I love this thing. It's totally worth it. You don't really know that it's worth it unless you've taken that dive at a higher price point, which I think will turn more people off.
I totally agree. I'm obviously just speaking from a personal perspective.
Yeah,
I'm,
for sure.
I'm
Oh, of
definitely
course.
not spending $70 on every game that comes out. Like I haven't bought a
Right.
$70 game yet, and I don't see myself doing that unless, again, the situation that we just talked about arises, where we start getting AAA VR games. Because I don't care about spending $70 on a flat screen VR game. That's not going to happen.
I mean, I'm stupid. I spent $70 on Demon Souls, I think, and then I bought almost everything I could have bought for the PS5.
So for me personally, I feel like my entire life I've kind of witnessed some times where games are $70 or like sometimes they're more, sometimes they're less. And to me, it just feels like a natural ebbs and flows of like price and inflation and different things that happen. I've never really like asked myself like why this happens, but when during the time, like I remember like GoldenEye, when GoldenEye 007 came out, I remember it being like $70 or something at the time. I don't really remember why. All I remember was I need GoldenEye and I need to figure out a way to get it. So I don't think it's like super sustainable for like every single game to be $70, but agree 100% with Brian there in that if there is this big game that can keep you occupied and keep you entertained for a long period of time, then I think some games can get away with it if it backs it up with the quality and the content.
Dude, that was in '98, dude. Like how much $70 from 1998 is now? Like you account for inflation, and that's like over $100 game that people were buying back then. It's like so. It's I 100% agree. Like, there were tons of N64 games that really explored the pricing structure and were very, very successful.
Thank you for answering that. I know that was from Gamer Chick, the Diet. This just in.
Something.
It's
game
great.
fan.
Sorry, Mick Coles. We decided we had a better question to answer. Midway through.
Oh,
Tiff, why don't you
Who we
take
got
it?
next?
Yeah, let's move on to the next question.
All right, Looper, the game cat, asks, I like horror vibes. I don't. But I hate actually being jump scared in VR. Which PSVR games would you recommend me? I recommend Tetris Effect because it gets really scary when they start coming down.
Not
I don't
exactly horror, though.
It's so bad.
This-
Or Beat Saber when they're coming at you.
There's
Stop
a
'em.
game with horror vibes, but it's not like the scariest game I've ever played. I can't think of the name. I can't put my finger on it,
Talking about
guys.
the Elijah Wood game?
No, I don't know what it is.
You're not following the joke here, Dave.
There's some game
Oh,
that is really intense.
I know what it is.
and
I know what it
it's-
is. I know
it's got
what it
a lot
is.
of survival.
It's Red
and-
Matter. Red Matter.
Oh,
Obviously,
it is Red
has-
Matter. Thank you.
It definitely has a little bit of a horror vibe, but it never gets super scary. Yeah, Red Matter is obviously the game you're looking for.
Yeah. No, I'm not just saying this because Tiffany's here. Saints and Sinners is like the ultimate horror vibes game. I mean, actually, Red Matter is surprisingly, I don't know if you were just kidding,
No,
but
it's
that
a
actually
great choice.
That's actually a pretty
I picked
good
it.
choice because it
Yeah,
is
I know.
kind of horror vibes, horror intense. Um, but no, I mean, again, you could sit this one out, Tiff. Saints and Sinners is an amazing like survival horror kind of theme game. There is maybe one or two parts that one thing that can happen in the game that might cause some jump scares, but basically the entire game is more about the intensity, like the tense situation and the survival of it.
You know, people ask me why it is that I can actually handle our game when I hate horror. I mean, I don't hate. Let me back up. I love horror games. I can't play them.
This is the
I can watch
headline.
other people play
Creator
them.
of Walking Dead hates horror.
Right.
Yeah, that's not it. I just am such a
PR
scaredy
company's
cat.
never letting you back here again.
Yeah.
But the nice thing about Saints and Sinners was that you can kind of control the situation a little bit more than otherwise. Like you can kind of anticipate when you're putting yourself in a moment of danger rather than kind of feeling like you're experiencing a lot of things, which is great. And I love watching other people experience horror. I'm working at it. I'm baby steps for me. First, I kind of watch Brian and you guys play them. And then I kind of say, okay, now maybe I can do it because I know what's happening.
And we give you the courage to
Right.
go through with it,
I can
right?
do it. Yeah.
Then the second the headset goes on, you're like, oh, this is way too real.
What have I done?
Right.
I did Phasmophobia for like all of
Oh, I love Phasmophobia.
maybe
That is
30.
terrifying, though. That's legit
I did it
terrifying.
for 30 minutes and I was like, oh, wow, this looks okay. I'll go get the book. And then I stayed in the van and told them, oh, yeah, your insanity levels are too low. Dude, I'm terrible. I'm a terrible horror partner. Yeah, don't come here if the zombie apocalypse happens. I'd be terrible. Absolutely terrible. Anyway,
but
sorry. Go ahead, Brian
I
and
feel
Dave.
like you do have something that might help with that, though, don't you, Tiffany? Just like right outside don't you have something that might be helpful if a
Xanax?
It's actually really
Oh.
heavy.
oh boy. Look at that.
Look at
It's
that.
a for reals.
That is a used axe, isn't it?
Now,
It's
is
a
that
for
the
reals at.
Is that the actual one that's in the picture there? Like, is
No,
that an actual picture of that X?
So what happened was when we finished the game, Skybound actually sent us a amazing. Actually, no, they sent it before we finished. They sent amazing like display of a bloody axe that they had created, and it was fantastic. And I had gotten in contact with an artist who creates horror weaponry, if you will, arsenals for horror movies. I should actually
Nice.
get you in contact with them,
You
Brian.
should.
Anyway, so I sent him a picture of it and I said, can you create something like this? And he created various iterations from a rubberized, very good looking one that he says we actually use as props in commercials and movies to that thing, which is the real deal. And of course, the execs at Skydance Interactive said, we need the real deal. I mean, we need to make sure that people have a hefty, real fireman's axe, which is what that is.
A
So-
hefty real fireman's ass? Is that what I heard there for a second? I
I
love
got
I
one
say
of
that?
those.
a Freudian
You
slip.
know how I moved right past
Is your
that,
husband a
Dave?
fireman, or
It's
should he be a fireman?
You're supposed to move past that. You know, when somebody keeps going,
Well, I just
they're
just
moving
think
past
that
it.
the hefty fireman ass as a phrase I had to comment on because I really liked that.
So to answer
Anyway,
your
Brian,
to
you were
answer your
saying?
question, Looper, I think Dave nailed it. Transference.
Transference is exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, the Elijah Wood game. There's only one or two jump scares in that game. It's got a lot of psychological horror. It's like unsettling more
So
than it's
unsettling.
scary. But I love the vibe of that game. I love the way that they keep you constantly like off your guard by adjusting the environment around you and changing everything.
Yeah.
You'll go through a door, and 2 minutes later, that door is a completely different door. You know, something different is on the other side. So they're keeping you on edge, and you feel spooked, but it's not jumping out and really throwing it at you too much. So that's my recommendation. I love that game. I wish it made it on more of the top 25s, but
Well,
That's a good
luckily
recommendation.
you'll have your chance to get it on another top 25.
oh, I suppose I will,
I'm
yeah.
sure very soon. And then the final question comes to us from who, Tiff?
Tax refund, the newly named. The hour of his judgment has come, Game Cat.
Oh.
I was wondering what AJ was doing. I'm like,
I was judging
Now that
you
we
like
know
you will be
him.
judged. I picture a metal judge. He's just like
A metal judge.
Yeah.
Somebody sculpted
is
a
a
judge made out of metal.
I'm picturing a
Found
judge who's just really into
It makes
metal.
more sense than oh. I don't know what was that about.
Quoting scripture,
either
man.
way, really.
I was like, you didn't go to Catholic school like I did?
No, I didn't.
oh my goodness. And
That
moving right
explains
along.
so much.
What's the deal with only certain games having, in my God canon voice, full body IK? I don't know. Do you want to do it?
That was a great one.
Body IK.
I love that
Rather
I love that he
than-
starts the question like Seinfeld and ends up like AJ. What's the deal? What's the deal with full body
Deal with
IK?
only certain games.
Anybody ever notice sometimes you're playing a game and you just don't have arms?
This is a great question. I'll get to the end of it, I promise.
No, we won't.
What's the deal with only certain games having full body IK rather than just the floating hands? I imagine it has something to do with devs not wanting to waste development time on figuring out how to solve the problems that FBIK could cause. That's a good question. May I?
Please.
Sure.
Well, speaking purely based off of The Walking Dead, I can say that we've explored floating hands to arms, as you know, to full body. And the feedback we got was really mixed. Now, some could argue that we should have gone full body because, you know, you do look down and you grab things. But what we found is that so we did play testing galore on this game. This was pre-pandemic. We had people who actually came to our physical office, and they were ones who like played The Forest to, you know, Resident Evil. They were just amazing crop of play testers. And they told us that if the body wasn't exactly on point, it broke immersion immediately. Like if they were a little too short or if just wasn't moving exactly as it should be. So we felt like at that time, the technology wasn't quite there for us to make sure that it never broke immersion. So we wanted to at least include the arms, again, assuming that we could get that just right. And I feel like we came darn close.
There have been so many games that that doesn't line up for me. The shoulders are too narrow, or the dude's body is just fucking gigantic, and I'm like, I'm not convinced. Like this is something's not right here. And I remember having a conversation about Firewall one day and going, and somebody was like, oh no, there's full body IK in Firewall, and I was like, no, there's not. And I realized that yes, I mean obviously there is, but I realized at that moment that it's a lot like soundtracks. It's like if it's done right, you almost don't notice it.
Yeah.
Right.
Right? It just feels totally natural, and it's like just part of the experience. But when it's done wrong, it ruins everything. Let's see Immortal Legacy.
Funny enough, Brian actually asked me about this question, and we were talking about whether or not Saints and Sinners had full IK, and I was saying yes, and he was saying either no or he doesn't know. But yeah, that's proof right there, because I'm usually like, I'm the guy that's always been like, no, I don't like floaty hands. I want full body IK to mess around with, even if it's just slightly off. Like I like having the full body there, and so yeah, when we were asking, so I actually thought it did, but then I remembered I don't ever remember looking down and like seeing legs and stuff. But you have your full arms, right?
Yeah.
Because
Full
you even
arms
choose.
and bunch of stuff that's in the general right location.
Oh, okay. Because I know you even chose like your skin color and your everything, and so I actually thought there was, but yeah, tricky.
Okay, but again, if you don't remember, then that means it was done right,
Right.
Because it was immersive enough for you to feel like you were the person.
Right.
Yeah.
I've played a lot of games where they've tried the full body IK, and there are a lot of issues that pop up, like the ones you've mentioned, but also stuff like when you recenter, like the body's in front of you, and you keep getting like this weird thing where you can see your own body if you don't get it centered just right. And that's always immersion breaking, like you said, Tiffany. But I've never had a moment in a game with just hands where I was like, this is really killing my immersion because I don't have arms.
Yeah.
When I do things in the world, I'm not actively focusing on my arms, and they don't take up much of my field of vision, right? Like, we have a much wider field of vision than you have in a VR headset. When you're constrained to this and your arms take up so much of your field of view, they almost become distracting. Like, especially if they're not working the way you expect them to. If they're janky, that really stands out. But even if they're not, they still occlude your vision a little bit and get in the way of what's in front of you. And I feel like as a gamer, like as a player, I always preferred floating hands. In multiplayer games where you can see other people, like Firewall, I do think that there's a good case to be made for why that's a good idea.
Yep.
Because, like, on the flip side, Walkabout Mini Golf we play all the time, but we're just floating heads with a golf club. And you lose a little bit of that embodied, like, interaction that you get in a game where you can see the guy next to you pointing his gun to the left and say, go this way, or whatever.
Right.
So it's a little bit of both. I mean, I don't know that Firewall really has full body IK. They have that center point that they can organize everything around with the aim controller. So I feel like it's a little different than having two unique hands that float around with motion controllers. But more often than not, I'm pretty fine with no IK. And I think it can be a big pitfall.
This has always been a big divide between our opinions. I've always been like, yes, I want full IK all the time. I don't care if it has a small problem.
But see, this is why you guys are such a great voice for the community, because this was as divided as the playtesters. Like, we had playtesters, and I know some of you will agree, that were saying, I want all the HUD turned off. I don't want any help. I don't want there to be any degrading on the weapon. I don't want to know what it breaks down to. I want zero help. And these were the people that really liked the forest, and really wanted the full survival. I want zero assistance. And then you had people who were like, look, I really need you to tell me how to do things. And I really want it to be, and nothing against the Wii, but they really wanted the kniving to be more of a Wii experience where you just kind of go pep, 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 instead of the full motion. Yeah. So it's a challenge, as for the design team and actually the whole development team as a whole, to figure out, okay, where is the perfect balance? And that's where they're just genius and experience come in, where they can just say, look, we're going to shoot at that, we're going to go for that, and then we're going to try to innovate and try to go past that when we can. So it's just been really terrific to watch them try to measure all of those opinions into some, okay, we're going to do that.
Yeah, playing without the HUD on is way more immersive for me.
Right?
Every VR game, yeah.
I didn't even understand for the longest time, I didn't understand the health stamina system in Saints and Sinners. And I said, you know what? I also don't care, because I'm going to turn this meter off, and I'm going to be just fine.
When you hear your character breathing heavy and bleeding out the face, then you know you're in trouble.
That's what I want. That's what
Brian,
I want.
beat the game with your character coughing the entire game.
The whole game. Every stream is like 6 hours at a time by just going. Everyone's like, "Are you okay, Brian?" They thought it was me during the stream. Right?
I
was fine though. It didn't affect me that much. Yeah.
Sometimes you need to have that HUD stuff, but there's no denying it is more immersive without it. But I like to play a game and get to know it well enough to where I can turn that stuff off. But there's some that are still just so challenging and stuff. You have to pay attention to that, or have some other way to indicate it, like your status, your health status and stuff. But I typically, I'll start a game with all that on and then turn it off later.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we do want to give a shout out to everybody in our community who has differing opinions than us. Just because we're the ones up here saying, we like this, or I like this. I don't mind floating hands, or I need full body IK. Doesn't mean that we're right. We see your comments all the time, and your opinions on this stuff is just as valid and as important to the VR conversation as ours. That's the one thing I always want to make sure everyone understands, is that we like talking about VR stuff, but it doesn't mean that our answers are the be-all, end-all. You guys are part of our community, and we love hearing you chime in on these topics too.
So we welcome all comments below telling us how wrong we are about everything we just said.
Except you have to agree that I'm right.
Yes.
That's really the only.
You're a guest on the show, so that the rules don't apply to you the same way.
Special rule for Tiffany. Always
That's
agree.
Right.
Yeah.
Tiffany, thank you so much for hanging out with us on Viewer Takeover on this very
Are you
special
kidding?
episode.
So much fun.
Yeah, it's been a long
You
time
guys are the
coming.
best.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hear the end of it from your mods, by the way. They're going to be, oh, it's about time.
If you didn't like the questions that we answered on this week's Viewer Takeover, the only person you have to blame is yourself because you didn't ask any better ones. So make sure you rectify that next week by putting Viewer Takeover, hashtag Viewer Takeover, all one word, in the comments below and ask us your question. Or, much more importantly, join our Discord where you can find Tiffany, but also all three of us. And that link is in the description. There's a little triangle, man. You click that little arrow, boom, the whole description pops down. We have a Discord. You know how many times a day I hear from people, do you have a Discord?
It's the best.
What am I even doing here? So make sure you join that Discord and leave your Viewer Takeover question in the Viewer Takeover channel. Also, make sure you consider changing your name to GameCat and leaving hashtag GameCat in the comments below so some random developer can give you a shout out in next week's show. Also, head on over to patreon.com/withoutparolegames and hook us up with $1 or more every month if you want to help keep these lights on. I'm sure I can do this in the dark, though, so it's no big deal. Don't worry about anything. That's it, man. That's it. This was so much fun. Thank you again, Tiffany. Make sure you subscribe to AJ at the Underground.
That was amazing.
Subscribe to Dave at Dave Station VR. My name is Brian Paul. This was Viewer Takeover, and we're out. Probably be stripped out because I didn't add anything to the conversation just now.
What are you talking about? That shows passion.
Brian,
Keep
edit
it in
that
there.
out. Brian, edit that out. Future Brian, get to work. Order a pizza for yourself,
that
Brian.
case-
You deserve it.
Yes.